Friends, I'm so excited to introduce you to the next person I'm chatting with, one of my favorite special friend of mine. And here she is. And her name is Yen. Hi, Yen. Yay! So we have been talking to so many people today. It's Leap Day. I've been having so much fun. And as you know, there are 7 touchstones of creativity. And we're focusing right now on circles, which who better to talk to about circles than my friend Yen? So thank you so much for joining. For those of you who don't know Yen, who I call Yenny, she has been participating in my flow challenges since the very beginning. But we go way back, long before the pandemic, long before the flow challenges. She's like a sister to me. We were roommates at the University of Pennsylvania. We were placed together synchronistically way back when as freshman roommates. And the story of how that came to pass is one of those stories that I always, when I think of the miracles in my life, I think of how I got randomly placed with you, Yen. So I just, you would be the perfect person to talk to about the power of circles because you've been such a huge support to me my entire life. So,
Ditto.
and also Yen is does amazing work on emotional healing and health care, and she is a therapist, and she just has so much wisdom to offer in the realm of the power of support and the power of circles, and what a difference circles can make in us being true to ourselves. So she comes here as a very well-respected professional as well as a friend. So what do you think? Should we tell the story
Yeah,
of how we got placed
yeah,
together?
it's a good story.
I know we both have a different perspective on it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll tell my
Okay.
perspective and then you can jump in. So we had just graduated high school and we both were going to the University of Pennsylvania. And that particular year, there was a shortage on rooms and dorms. And I lived about an hour from the university. And so I was placed on a wait list for dorms. And I think the thinking was probably like, oh, she could live at home and commute if we really didn't have enough space. And meanwhile, in my heart of hearts, all I ever wanted was to live in the quad. And so I was on that waiting list and I called. It was back before email, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
We're dating ourselves. Um, and so I called that admissions department every single day during the summer to see where I was on that wait list. And I was like 500 and then 400 and 300. And then finally I called and I was number 10 and I was like, oh, okay. And I think it was in August. It was like right before school was going to start and I still didn't have a roommate. And then I think immediately thereafter, we got a call. I remember my younger brother answered the call.
Yes.
But do you want to tell your side of the story
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. Yeah. So I got my housing notification early and I was matched with someone who's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And, I grew up in New York and I had never been further west than like Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So I was very excited to be matched with someone who was from a different part of the country. And I remember this was before email. And even, I mean, there were phones, but like phone calls to like people you didn't know wasn't a thing. And you just like now, most people don't make phone calls. So I wrote a letter to this prospective roommate and, said how excited I was to meet her. And I got a letter back from her in August, I think, that said, oh, it sounds like you didn't hear, but I actually asked to be matched with someone that is from my hometown. So I'm going to be rooming with this other person. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be a roommate. And I was like, oh no. So I called and I found out that I got matched with Lori Smith from Trenton, New Jersey. So disappointed because I was like, that's like me. I got matched with my sister. Um, and then I called your house and spoke to your little brother and I told him, my name is Yen Djakov and I'm
You said
calling.
Yanishka too, I think. Or maybe you said
I
Yen.
don't
I don't
remember, but I remember when you called me back, you asked for Wen Cobb.
know. So my younger brother Scott gave me this phone message, and this was like, back in the day before we didn't even have like voicemail at that time. It was just answering machines. And I got this written message from my little brother, when Cobb called, your new roommate, or something like that. So anyway, but the minute we had that first phone conversation and I called you back, it was like kismet. We were just
Yeah.
meant to be. We were soul sisters. So yeah. And now, fast forward till today, the pandemic happened and I started doing my flow challenges. And in the very beginning, you were right there doing your flow. You submitted so many photos of your journaling and your meditating and all of the different activities you've done over the years. But you've been a huge support of this and just a huge part of the community. So thank you for that. So I also just wanted to, because you are a therapist and just have such a strong background in emotional wellness, and this is what you do for a living, I just thought, do you have any words of wisdom or anything that you want to share about the power of community or some basic tips for, how we can be most supportive of each other and how we can create that safe space? Because in the work that I'm doing, the one thing that I've noticed and the one thing that I've learned through these flow challenges is I really believe emotional safety is the key. And earlier today, one of the people that I spoke with was Noreen O'Sullivan, and she works with children, and she talked a lot about making any emotion safe and acceptable, and she has tools that she works with the children she works with, and they're ones that we can learn from too. But this make emotional safety is key. And from my perspective, I'm a recovering perfectionist. And so a lot of this process with flow has really been my relationship with my inner critic. And when the inner critic gets quiet, that's when we can access the egolessness, which is the gift that we get from being in a flow state. And so, but I know that you also have so much value that you bring in that realm as far as just emotional safety. And so I was just wondering if you had any tips or any wisdom you wanted to share about how to create that safe space for each other.
Yeah, I resonated with so much that you just said. But I will say, I think a willingness to be vulnerable in the context of your community is so important and creates strong relationships. Like it's like magic. It is literally like magic. So if you can take that risk and be willing to be vulnerable, which I've seen in flow challenges of people sharing their artwork or people sharing that they're doing something that they think is goofy, like dancing or whatever it is, like that is a willingness to be vulnerable. And that is what builds strong community and strong relationships and places where it's like a container where healing can take place and emotional growth can take place. So that's something I found. And then just when you mentioned that perfectionist and that inner critic, um, I spent a lot of time thinking about that inner voice, that inner critic. And how I've come to understand my own inner critic is that it's really something that's trying to protect me based on past experiences. And so it's always trying to predict the worst case scenario so that I can avoid those things. And that's great. That's a great strategy, except that it can really keep me from pushing out of my comfort zone because that inner critic will be right there to tell me I can't do it. But seeing my inner critic, that the part of me that acts from a place of love and a place of caring for me, has helped me to soften it a little bit, in a way that I can appreciate what it's trying to do and then let it know that I'm okay and that I can keep moving forward, even though I know it might be something that might hurt or might be scary, that I can keep doing it. So just when you said that, and that's like another piece of being vulnerable, right? It's being vulnerable with ourselves. And being willing to listen to ourselves, like not from a place of judgment, but in a way that understands that all the pieces of ourselves, love all the other parts of ourselves, and that we all the pieces of ourselves have something to offer as we move forward.
I just love that. I know that over the last 4 years for me, this idea of a dialogue, like just what you said, I still hear the inner critic, and yet it's almost like a volume has been turned up on my true self and my true voice. So I find myself saying, like, oh, how am I going to do this? Or even today, okay, like, for 12 hours I've been on Zoom and Instagram Live, Zoom, Instagram Live. It's a lot. So of course, last night as I was going to sleep, I'm thinking, why am I doing this? This is so much. Am I overworking? And then I've been like, then there's that other voice that comes in. It's like, no, Laurie, you're very intuitive, and this is where you felt led to, and you love this work, and it energizes you. It doesn't drain you, and that's an old script, and you got this. You're going to get in flow, and you're just going to love it, and blah blah blah. And so that I don't think that used to happen. I think I used to just give the focus, like when we were in college and, back in those days, I don't think I had the skills or the knowledge or the awareness. And I think that's a gift that flow has given me, even though I did get into flow quite a bit because I was writing back in college and still doing lots of creative things. It's this awareness of what we're already doing. And a lot of times we're already doing things really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
That are really, really good for us, but they're unconscious. And so I think the flow challenge is, for me, it started accidentally, not really well thought through, but as I'm realizing its power is not only, can we trust our intuition to choose whatever 5-minute activity is right for us in any given month. There's no real rules to what that is, but it's also just that it silences when we're in the flow state. When we are aware that we've been in the flow state, then it's like it's like shining a flashlight on it or something, and we're more aware that, hey, I just experienced a period of time when my inner critic was nowhere to be found, and it was just me and that wise inner self playing with paints or doodling, and wasn't that fun? Wasn't that a gift? And so for me, it's like, the flow habit is not just getting in the flow state, but now, and I'm just kind of really thinking of this right now as we're talking, but I'm realizing, that it's also been my path to helping to heal my perfectionism, because, when you can't be being critical of yourself and being perfectionistic and in flow at the same time. That you just kind of coexist. So it's a nice, playful, fun way to help heal that parts of ourselves that just turn down the volume a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So anything else that you want to share? You're doing so much and you just
Mm.
have so much wisdom. So I just either what that you've learned from your own flow challenges or just from life, is there anything else that you would love to share?
I think something I would share that I'm becoming more aware of is when I get into situations where all of a sudden I notice that I'm not feeling comfortable. Um, and I used to be, and I still am. This is something I'm working on, of just being judging of that or ignoring that. And now I'm really trying to honor that and approach it with a sense of curiosity. That's my other piece that I would say, in addition to vulnerability, is approaching relationships with a sense of curiosity. Because I think how I learned growing up to be more judging, to be honest. If something was different than me, if it felt uncomfortable, and to just kind of discount it. And instead, that's a real way to cut off relationships, right? So approaching with a sense of curiosity is a way to build relationships. And oftentimes what I'm learning, and I think you'll relate to this too, the things that I feel the most uncomfortable with are typically things that I myself do, or that I'm really uncomfortable with those aspects of myself, which is why it's so easy for me to see them in another person. And so when I can shift to that curiosity mindset, I not only get to learn more about this person, but I get to learn more about myself through that. And that has been really transformative. So those two things, vulnerability and curiosity.
Beautiful. beautiful. I love that. And you know, I have recently been studying internal family systems therapy. Are you familiar with that? With Richard
A
Schwartz,
little bit.
IFS. So one of the ideas within that is that this idea that we've been talking about that, of the true self, that we have this wise inner self, but he's come up with characteristics based on the therapy and the what he's seen with clients, characteristics of the true self, and one of them is
Mm,
curiosity, and the other is compassion. There's a bunch of C words and a bunch of P words, and my favorite is curiosity, and then the P word that's my favorite is playfulness.
mm,
And so I just love what you said because it so resonates with, you know, everything that I'm doing. I'm always my North Star is always everything I'm doing is to connect, help support other people, but mostly myself, stay connected to that true self, and
mm,
that soft, still voice within. And so I love what you said because it's almost like when we're curious in any situation, when we, you know, if we feel that judgment coming up, and we do what you recommended, which is so wise, is like just get curious. Like, what am I really, really curious about this person, or why they're acting this, or why they believe that, or whatever. It's we're shifting
mhm.
into our true self and aligning with
Yeah.
who we really are. So it's so beautiful, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to relationships, I just feel so grateful to you. And I think it's really special to have a relationship that's been as long as ours. And, you know, in the flow community, one of the, we kind of had these guidelines, and I know you know these, but they're like, one of them is when we lift each other up, we all rise. And so it's like, we
Mm,
need relationships where we really, really, truly can say from the bottom of our heart that we want what's in the other person's best interest, and we just want for them, you know, the best. And I've always felt that from you, so I just want to be so, you know, just tell you I'm so grateful to you for always being that, you know, constant, consistent. I've just always felt like you wanted the best for me, and I know that I've always wanted the best for you. So
mm.
it's just been such a great model for me on what relationships and friendships are all about.
I
So
wish I could say something better than that, but I can't. Back the same way. Um,
uh,
you really are like a sister to me, and someone who I just feel unconditional love from.
oh, wow. Well, thank you for joining me. I know you're so busy and you have so much wisdom. So I'm so grateful that people got to meet you. And I have to bounce now because I have another Zoom meditation to lead at the top of the hour. But yeah, thank you so much. Okay, love you too. Bye.